Hi there. Welcome back to another episode of Why You Worried About It. This is a podcast journey to a better you. I'm Lindsay Bush, the HR director with Country Crossroads.
Hey everybody, it's Susie Arbo, and I'm a licensed professional counselor. And today is kind of a really great topic, I think, because our title of our podcast is called Why You Worried About It, as we all worry about things. And on this podcast, we talk about things we should worry about and things that we shouldn't worry about. And so today's topic is
Anxiety.
anxiety. How many people's blood pressure just went up when we said the word
Exactly.
anxiety?
Yee. It's okay.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, anxiety's healthy. That's why it's one of our many things we have to battle and get through. It's okay to be anxious. It, to an extent, right, Susie?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And you know what's crazy is that most people have anxiety, and it's actually a very normal, common thing. And I think people kind of get in this realm of thinking that their life has to be perfect and they have to, always be happy, or they always have to, have everything in place. And in reality, it's actually a very normal part of life to stress, to worry, to be anxious about certain things. It's when the anxiety is so extreme and the thoughts just keep racing and it really does a number on your quality of life that anxiety becomes a problem.
Yeah.
And actually, when you look up like hot topics right now on what people want to listen to on podcasts and what they want to read about and hear more about, it is about anxiety because it is such a widely known,
Yeah.
thing that
Yep.
that people go through.
Yeah, everybody. And even if you don't feel like you're quite as anxious, I know like the people around you, sometimes people, their energy, if they're anxious, it makes me anxious. If I feel like somebody else is just kind of all over the place, it's very much like, how can I help somebody walk back from that place that they're in? Even my kids, sometimes, if my little ones get anxious about things, and how do you help people work through those problems or those feelings of emotion that just sometimes get too overwhelming?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think sometimes people wonder maybe like where it comes from or where it stems from. And so maybe let's start kind of there explaining that little process. So sometimes it is genetic, right? Like maybe your parents were super anxious, maybe they had like a generalized anxiety disorder and maybe it was kind of undiagnosed or whatnot, but maybe you just noticed them stressing or worried about things constantly. It's a real deal in our brain, a chemical imbalance
Mhm.
in our brain and stuff. And so sometimes it's genetic, but then also sometimes it is what we call situational,
Mhm.
right? Like maybe we're going through a really hard thing, like you were just talking about your kids. Maybe they have a sporting event going on, that or some kind of thing going on, or being left out of a group at school or something. A situation can cause people to be anxious as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know my biggest struggle with anxiety, probably, I've always battled it, and it's not, I mean, I'm free to talk about it. It's not nothing I'm ashamed of, because hopefully I'm managing it well now with the help of my friends here. But when I had kids and it really got serious, whenever you were watching the news and people were talking about people like snatching kids from movie theaters and taking, and at that time my kids were little, and I literally, my mind would just race all the time. What's going to happen? My grandma, who's amazing, was taking care of my kids. And even if she would tell me, hey, we're going to take the kids to McDonald's and then go do something fun, I would have like panic attacks, because I'm like, I just knew that something was going to happen. It got, but there were things I finally was able to do to kind of walk myself back off that cliff and stop. I don't watch the news as regular around that time. I stopped filling my head with all the negative things, because it really, once you let those thoughts take over and you don't know how to get out of it, or if you are putting yourself in that bad situation of being triggered by it, it can be completely consuming. And then it gets to a not healthy place for sure. Like, I think I tortured my little one, and telling her over and over again, Addie, if anybody tries to take you, what will you do? And those kind of things. And finally she looked at me one day and she's like, Mom, when is this going to happen? And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I went too far. So my anxiety took over, in not a good way in that situation for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that I feel like that definitely happens if we hear of something even if it's just like a one-time deal, like you hear of some kind of, terrible thing that happens, let's say in a city or Kansas City or whatnot. And then it's like all of a sudden we bring that to reality for ourselves, like, oh,
Mhm.
see that could happen, even though it's like a one in a million or a one in a
Sure.
billion chances, our brain hangs on to that. And two, like if we've ever been through a traumatic
Hmm.
experience, even just one time, even though it's a rare thing, then it's like we hang on to that and it scares us. I know the only car accident I've ever been in, knock on wood, was a rainy night in the middle of the night driving on a tar road up in Minnesota. And this is, over 20 years ago. But to this day, when I drive in rain, I am paranoid, right? The
Yeah.
anxiety kicks in and I have both hands on the steering wheel. It's very normal for us if we've been through something hard or whatnot to think that that could happen again.
Hmm.
So one of the things I think, is kind of looking at your life right now, wherever you are, whoever you are, and to think about what are some of the things that are causing you anxiety. Is it money? I know I'm being a therapist and I talk to a lot of people, and one of the things that I always hear people stressing and worrying about is money and relationships.
Hmm.
Those are some of the things that cause a lot of anxiety. I know recently with this, our world and this election situation, a lot of people were worried about it. And it's something it's still kind of out of our control. We can only do a small little piece of our own thing for it. So identifying first of all what are the things that are causing you anxiety and kind of you just writing those down and whatnot. Lindsay, what are some of the things for you that you've gotten? Then I'll share mine.
Oh, absolutely. My children, of course, worrying about them all the time and going through divorce right now, trying to make sure I'm doing the best for them. That's hard. It's hard to navigate. That is probably my number one. And then of course financial, just like you said, relationships. Am I spending and prioritizing my time the way I should and being productive like I should. I love my flexibility of my job, but making sure I'm doing things to take care of me and to make sure I'm doing a good job in my role and what I'm doing with other people. So those are definitely main ones for me.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, those are big ones, and I think a lot of people can identify with those. So I'm glad you're talking about those. And one of the things on the show, we want to be real, and we don't have it all figured out. We are far from perfect, and so we're trying to better ourselves as well through this. And so, thank you for sharing that. Some of the things right now that are causing me some anxiety. Although I love my job, and I always joke I don't work a day in my life because I love it. I also worry being a business owner and you've got 50 plus people that rely on you to make the right decisions, and so sometimes there's a lot of stress that comes with that and worry, and at the end of the day, it kind of all comes back onto you and your moves, and so I feel some pressure with that, some anxiety.
Mhm.
Also, I feel like relationships, also are a big, we've talked on the show a lot of times, they bring us the most joy, but they can also bring us the most pain,
Yes.
and the most hurt and stuff. And so definitely I worry and anxious about them sometimes. And then, um, I think just thinking about, the future and wondering what that's going to be like, and I think a lot of people kind of get anxious about that. I know I do too.
Hmm.
So once we have identified those big key things that are causing us some anxiety, I just kind of want everybody to reflect on right now, maybe what that feels like in our body, like where we carry that. Sometimes it's in our brain and it's the thoughts, and it's just like we think, overthink, and then they kind of almost like spiral downwards into that rabbit hole. Sometimes we feel it physically in our body, like our heart can be racing. Sometimes people have shortness in breath, like you mentioned a panic attack earlier. That's definitely in the anxiety family is panic. And even just the PTSD, the post-traumatic stress, of having that hard or that bad, that traumatic thing happen, bad, sad, or scary thing, and then our body can feel it physically. And that's the thing. I get a lot of people that are referrals from an emergency room because they're like, I went to the emergency room because I thought I was having a heart attack, and my doctor told me my heart is absolutely fine, that I
Hmm.
was having an anxiety attack. And so we can definitely feel it physically. So I want you to think about right now how you feel it and where you carry it in your body and kind of identify that. Then, and for me, it's like it's different sometimes because sometimes I do feel like the racing heart, and then other times I do find myself up at night worrying and stressing and knowing that. And the coolest thing about anxiety, and this is one thing I think that some people don't understand, is that it's so treatable. You don't like, yes, it's going to come, it's going to go, it's going to whatnot, but you don't have to suffer in it. There are things, there is coping skills. Like we are learning so much right now about the human brain. It gets me so excited to know that it is treatable. And sometimes I think people don't realize that and they think, well, I'm just anxious or I just have anxiety, and they don't do anything to like stop it.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
They just let that go. And even the people too, I need to say this, I feel like even the people that know all the tips and tricks and tools, like I've been doing this for 20 plus years now, treating people with anxiety and myself as well, that even though we have the tools, we still have to use them and put them into place regularly on a daily basis, right? And so
Absolutely.
can you talk a little bit about that, Lindsay? Like what are some of the
Yeah.
things, maybe how it affects you and what you do
Oh
about
yeah.
it?
I am classic tension headache, through and through. I've had them and dealt with them my entire life. And I think for me, it got to a point where it was really easy for me to be like, oh, I just have anxiety. It's like, oh, just put a label on me. I have anxiety. The anxiety depression is what they always want to say. And I think it was really interesting when I found out that anxiety is really worrying about things that are out of your control, maybe and in the future. And you get more depressed when you're worried about things that have already happened and things that are in your past. So it's like anxiety versus depression is interesting. A lot of times they go hand in hand, but for me, it was like, and I joke about it, if anybody that knows me knows I joke about everything. I joke about taking my meds or if I'm crying or all the things, but it's true. I can tell if I haven't taken, because I have a chemical imbalance, obviously, and if I don't take them, like I get sappy and I start worrying and I get my thoughts start racing and I don't have control of my own mind, and it's scary for me. So making sure that even when I'm feeling good, to not stop taking my medicine is important. And that's classic. I worked at a clinic and a doctor's office for a very long time, and we'd always joke whenever we knew people were like, oh, they're feeling good, they're off their meds. And then you get the phone call a week later that they need a refill again. It's like, uh-huh, yeah, you do. But it's just important, I think, knowing yourself and not being too proud. It's really easy to, I think one thing that I love about the world anymore is mental health is coming to light so much, and people aren't afraid to say that I'm anxious or all of these things, but they can just be a moment in time. It doesn't have to be where you live. Just because you have anxiety does not mean you are always an anxious person. Like you can take control over these things if you're willing to put in the work or recognize the things you might need. I think our pride gets us a lot, and sometimes it's even opposite. Sometimes people want to walk around with that badge of I have anxiety and those things too. So I mean, it's really what you want out of your life and how you want to live and grow. I mean, if you like to be anxious all the time, which to me seems yucky, but I mean, I guess that's something you can do, but there's so many things out there now that you can do. Even like we've said and preached in many of our episodes, it's not just one-on-one therapy you have to do. It's not, there's so many things out there that you can go and get, whether it's listening to a podcast or finding a workbook online. So many different coping skills and things that are available now, now more than ever. Um, so we're really at a good place that if you have any of those issues, that you can just talk about it and find something that's going to help.
Hmm. One of the best coping skills that we have is talking about what's bothering us or just even getting
Mhm.
it out of our body. I know we've mentioned that before on here. Anxiety is a thought-based disorder, and what's what's kind of crazy about it is that 85% of our thoughts each day are negative. And it's not like we wake up every day and we just want to be a negative person, negative Nancy. Like that's not the case. Most of us don't want to be that way. But then another kind of statistic that's kind of wild is that 85 to 90% of the thoughts that we have every day are repetitive, and we'll have them again the next day. So when we think about that, we think about what can we do about that? And that's where, as a therapist, what we do with people is we help them change their thoughts. First of all, identify which thoughts are negative, and then you know what? You need to do something to change that thought and to get yourself out of that, because I like to call them sticky thoughts, where you have that one and then it just kind of spirals and it kind of keeps going and you go worst case scenario. And remember, most things that we worry about will never happen.
Mhm.
Right. Or if you're worried about somebody talking bad about you, chances are they're not talking bad about you. You know, you're in your own head about stuff. And so, and that's really a real deal, because it is our thoughts, right? So one of the things, I think we've shared this before, but if you missed that one, we love talking about thought stopping. So picturing a big stop sign saying stop, Susie or Lindsay or whoever is listening. And then you say those two magical words, not helpful, and then changing it into something that is helpful, a more helpful thought, right? Another, and I use thought stopping every day. I've done it today already several times, but it just kind of helps us kind of direct that thought into something that's more productive and healthy for us. And if you can do that multiple times when that anxiety happens, it is going to lower your anxiety. And again, like we can't take it all away. We can't just like wave a magic wand and make it go. You can make yourself feel a little better in that moment, right? The power of our breath, just even taking some deep breaths, and there's a million different styles on there. If you're by a computer, you should just Google deep breathing and find one that works for you. Like there's so many good ones. And sometimes just to kind of reset and refocus. I love even just like going for a walk, getting exercise anytime that you can get your physical heart rate up in a good way that actually lowers our anxiety. And it actually is the best antidepressant and anti-anxiety medication out there that's natural. Is moving your body or being outside, that kind of stuff. And um, so I think, some of the kind of the key points today is recognizing that anxiety is normal. It can be either situational, it can be a genetic thing. You might have anxiety, but not enough for a full like anxiety diagnosis. And that's okay. It doesn't matter. It's what you do about it that does matter. And like I said, it's very, very treatable. And I love seeing therapy clients see results and say, "Wow, I'm changing my thoughts and I feel so much better." So if that's kind of the one takeaway, we just want to challenge you to identify what is causing or what's causing you the anxiety and then what can you do? What's a coping skill, one small coping skill that you can do to feel even a little bit better today?
Yep. Always remember, why are you worried about it? Is it really something that we need to worry about? Like, I know we joke about it and we love Jesse came up with this and with Susie a long time ago, but I mean it's so true and we say it all the time now. I know it's top of our mind, but truly, why are you worried about it? Why is it really something that's going to come to fruition, or are we just overthinking, just really kind of making it more realistic. I think our minds can really tell us a lot of stories that are more often than not never going to happen. So just being realistic, and I love that. I love Susie saying to write it down. I love to write it down and do the in control, out of control, all of those things which we've talked about in other episodes. So lots of really good points. Yeah, that circle of control.
Circle of control. Yeah,
Yep.
that's an awesome thing. Um, yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Jessie. We got to have her on the show sometime
I,
because
Jesse,
she's an amazing person and
she's
she's
the
totally
best.
got that great attitude of why are you worried about it? So, with that, I think we're gonna wrap up and hopefully you guys enjoyed today's shows. If you have any topics in the future that you want to hear about that would help you on your journey to a better you, we want to hear about it because it could help us too. It could help everybody.
Absolutely. Yes, thanks so much. Be sure to follow us. We are on Facebook. We have lots of fun stuff going on if you're local to us. Even if not, we have some programs that are kicking off that can go across the nation if you're into teaching or classrooms. So definitely check us out. Find us on our website, countrycrossroadscounseling.com. If you ever want to reach out to us in any way, we'd love to hear from you.